if there is a common theme recently in Celtics world, it's Brad Stevens and his extends, his Celtics enhancement pills. Look,
That
we had Marcus Smart last week, Rob Williams, Richardson. Everyone's getting extended.
I was texting with friend of the show and freaking co-host Ryan Bernardoni to see if there was any like, are there any other Celtics left on the roster eligible to be extended? And so guess what, Bruno Fernando, you're up. The 4-year $9 million extension is coming your way in mere hours now. But it is
unless maybe Brad used all his pills.
That's true. You can, listen, you gotta see a doctor if you use too many. So it's slow down there. But yeah, so three extensions here in the past week. We already talked about Marcus last week. But I'll leave it to you. What you want to start with, Rob Williams or the Josh Richardson?
Yeah, Rob is, I think, a little bit more exciting. I think the ceiling is higher on a Rob extension. It's a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. I read your story in Mass Live about the Richardson extension, where everyone's sort of figuring out what to make of it. But are the details out yet on Rob?
They are not.
By the way,
they are not. So I'll start with this. I would be shocked if the $54 million is guaranteed.
And I'll start with this. I will tell you that it is not.
Ooh.
I don't know if we call that exclusive.
That's absolutely exclusive.
I don't report this kind of thing. It's not fully guaranteed from what I hear. I mean, yes, again,
sure.
I have very little credibility in this game. Yes, but according to Winning Play sources, I have heard that it is not fully guaranteed.
I'm gonna follow up on that then to check out those. But yeah, that is not a shocking development. And yeah, so like with that involved, if the money is not guaranteed, as we both suspect or have heard, then there's little to dislike about this deal. Again, once you kind of went down that road of Marcus Smart, then like the train has left the station. So why not?
Yeah, and okay, like I said a million times, if he plays, it's a win. It's undeniably a win. If he plays the way he did last year for that number, right? And let's say he plays more games, that he's hurt a little less often. If he puts up that sort of production for 13 and a half a year, that is pretty solid value. But if we're assuming he's going to continue to develop, he's going to get more comfortable, and if we can assume he will be healthy, it's a home run.
Right. And so that there's a long way to go on this front for a guy who's, has played about 100 games in his NBA career period over 3 seasons. So, but I think we saw game 1 against the Nets. Like, if you want to talk about a role player making an impact, 8 blocks and a host of other, contested shots, as well as, being automatic around the rim, like that's a pretty good combination here. And for a Celtics team that aren't going to have, big money to spend in the future, if you can get a guy locked up on a contract where he at least has the capability of outperforming it by a lot, then that's, again, where you want to be in terms of the team building standpoint.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was already banged up Rob Williams that put up those 8 blocks, right?
That's a good question. I think he might have got banged up during that game. But he maybe not. You're right, because he was rested at the end of the regular season, so maybe he came back and then did that, and then it started bothering him again the next game or something like that.
Let's be honest, he can stand to lose a little bit of athleticism. Like, this is a guy, you know what I mean? Like, who was I talking about recently? I was talking about Klay Thompson, about when people are talking about his return, what he's going to look like. If Klay was sort of in that Paul Pierce mode of like, you never relied too much on your athleticism. So as you got older, you're still able to do a lot of things because you never counted on it as much. Another reason that Isaiah Thomas, I think, has fallen off a cliff in terms of getting even an opportunity now in the NBA, because he needed every ounce of that quickness and athleticism to succeed at his height. So Rob is a guy that is going to have to learn how to effectively, I want to say dominate, but let's say like leave his mark, impact the game without absolutely freakish athleticism, if we're talking about the long term. And maybe that can help protect him a little bit, because you see the way he attacks, blocks, and it's been responsible for at least 1 or 2 nicks and knacks, maybe even some of his more serious.
Absolutely. When you go up like 10 feet into the air and the soft landing is not there for you, that's how you get hurt, especially when you don't have a ton of muscle in those bones, which he doesn't. And so, yeah, like, picking your spots for that and just knowing, learning to protect yourself, which to your point may involve you being like, okay, I don't have to go 10 feet high for this block. I can go 8 feet high, or just,
Right.
or maybe I shouldn't go up at all here, because if I come down hard, then I'm going to be, out for the next week or two.
There's so many different things that can happen.
Yes.
When a man that big who can jump that high and at that speed, again, and you can go 2-3 years without getting injured. I guess it's possible. There have been guys who have had careers like that, but the more often than not more often than not, there's just a decent chance.
Has there been any player though that has played as little as he has that has gotten this kind of money in their rookie extension?
I wouldn't know. I would think
Because like
so.
maybe like Embiid's the only one that obviously that comes to mind early, but that was a different category in terms of
Just ceiling and
his
production
ceiling,
as a
exactly,
number three
production.
pick versus
That's
the
number
late
three,
first rounder.
exactly. But in terms of that mid-level type player, obviously he's getting a little bit more than mid-level money here. But like it's hard to think of a comparable situation from a guy that has shown this much upside, but still has not been on the floor. I mean, he played a lot last year. He played, over 50 games. So that was, easily his best chunk of his career in terms of a regular season, but still just was not able to stay healthy when it mattered in the postseason, or at least in the last couple weeks of the year.
Yeah, and I think we'll see, like, especially if we keep talking about the cap raising, even if it doesn't, like 13.5 million in this day and age doesn't feel like a huge,
No, that's not going to
like,
sink you.
no, it's not. There are a lot of bad, really bad contracts that are even more expensive than 13.5. How bad it'll be, right? Like, we'll see. Like, if he doesn't play at all, it's a total wash, and you're flushing 13.5 down the toilet. But if we're assuming that he'll be able to give a little bit at least, it's not going to be too bad. Let's hope it's much more, because I think we both agree that, like, his value could be upwards of $20 million a year very easily if he's able to, even if he doesn't get that much better. But I think we both agree on this too, that he has room to get much better and has shown flashes of doing that.
Right. I mean, you look at the money Clint Capella got a couple years ago, and I think that's just the comparable situation. And I do think the upside for Rob, at least from like a passing standpoint and other things like that, is higher than Capella. But obviously, he has a long way to go to be that type of player in terms of just staying out there and doing it night after night. And we saw stretches of that last year, but again, whether they can work that into his, whether it's his fitness or just his health plan overall, like whatever needs to be done here, I imagine he's going to have playing time incentives in this contract, which is a simple thing of being like, okay, if you can stay out there and healthy, you're going to get that full amount. And
Right.
then that will, be not that, from what I hear, he's someone who, works his butt off when he can anyway. So it's like, I don't think that's an issue with them. And I don't think that's a sign of them giving him this extension now was a nod to that, being like, okay, we know that we can trust you to do this. It's just, are we going to be able to put you in better enough good shape here to stay on the court?
And what's so interesting, I've mentioned this in a previous podcast too, I think, is that all these guys are going to get a chance to do it in front of a whole new set of eyes on the sidelines.
Yeah.
You got a new head coach, you got a new coaching staff. So, like, anything we think about Robert does not matter. It's what he's shown Ime and his crew in this short time. And granted, they probably haven't worked together very much. And it kind of,
they were FaceTiming from Japan. Come on.
Right. So that's because that was a thought I had on Richardson too, if we want to transition into that. And I want your take, because I know you broke it down in depthly on Mass Live. But it's not even like a situation where the Celtics started spending some time with Richardson. They're like, oh wait, maybe we got a steal here, and let's he's someone maybe want to got to lock in for another year. There's nothing that he was not able to win anybody over in this short time. I would not think. So what do you think? Like, I know no one's quite sure, but what was the inspiration behind this? And yeah, this came out of left field. It seems like an extension right for Josh Richardson. You hear whispers. There wasn't a tiny little whisper about Richardson being extended another year in Boston, but why did it happen, you think?
Well, I don't know if you've been following his Instagram, Rich, but he's had posted a lot of workouts. So
he's also posted a lot of anti-vax stuff, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. That's
maybe that's the secret to an extension.
God. Hopefully they can get him to come around on the vax stuff. But as far as the extension goes, it is a situation where I think the landscape of free agency probably changed how both sides looked at his situation. From the Richardson side, from his camp, all these other guys in next year's free agent class got extensions this offseason. And part of you's like, oh yeah, that's great. More money for me. But then you look around the league and it's like, well, not a lot of teams have cap room right now. And the ones for next summer and the ones that do are rebuilding. So are they going to be interested in paying 50, a 28-year-old Josh Richardson $15 million a year? Probably not, even if you have a good year. So I think that probably made his camp open the extension. I think, okay, let's at least lock you in for above mid-level money here. And so we don't have to like take that risk of you having a bad year or whatever. And then, going the Dennis Schroeder route.
I was just gonna say maybe he talked to Dennis after it became official. He's like, oh wait, let me lock this in for one more year.
Right. Dennis is like, what's your advice? Like, sign the extension, whatever they put in front of you. And then again, when you look at the Celtics side of it, it's like it should be a good value contract. I mean, I guess we can talk about that part of it first. Like Josh Richardson had another year at $12 million. Sure, I like what even if it works, even if he has like a year like last year, like that's fine. Like that's not going to hurt you.
Right. He can if he's healthy, he can eat some minutes. Which isn't the nicest thing you can say about someone. He can eat some minutes. But I just think if you're going, we talk about like where the Celtics are right now, just in their grand plan, where maybe some of these guys could be thinking, okay, I'm just going to be a conduit to Bradley Beal. Well, could be Rob, it could be Marcus, could be all these guys.
Right.
And we talk about Nesmith and Pritchard too. Like, the better I play, that just make me a more tempting part of whatever package is going to be offered up for Beal at some point. But if you're trying, and I think they are trying to get some cohesion, some unity, some real sense of team, and anytime you can just say to a guy, hey, you're going to be here for 2 years. I mean, anything can happen, but we're locking you in. You're not just a part of this team for 1 year to get yours and see what you can get on the market. Like, you're part of this. So let's start building for this year and next year together. And if you can get one more guy on board in that sort of on that goal, I think that's good for the locker room.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the distraction element of like being in a contract year hasn't been talked about a lot, but I do think with how things turned out last year and again, how the team was viewed, the Kyrie stuff around the league or, those like the Celtics looking like a team taking care of their guys is not bad for business, I would say, from afar.